Time, relentless as ever, carried Aisha and Daniel into new seasons of life. Aisha eventually married and had a daughter, Layla, while Daniel, though never settling down in the traditional sense, built a life rich with music, travel, and mentorship. Despite the differences in their lifestyles, they never drifted as far as before. Lessons from the past had taught them to nurture the bond they had fought so hard to keep. Layla grew up knowing her mother's best friend as Uncle Danny. He taught her to strum guitar chords before she could even write full sentences, filling their living room with music and laughter. Aisha, watching them, often thought of the young dreamer she had met all those years ago, the boy who refused to let the world box him in. But even the strongest friendships face shadows. Daniel, now in his late 40s, began to feel the sting of regret. Watching younger musicians rise to stardom, he sometimes wondered if he had aimed too low, if he had settled for being respected instead of legendary. One evening, after a small performance, he confessed to Aisha, "Sometimes I feel like I've wasted my life. Everyone around me is moving forward. Marriage, kids, stability, and I'm just still chasing the same dream." Aisha looked at him with the same steady gaze she always had. "Daniel, you've built something real. Maybe you're not a superstar, but you've touched lives. My daughter looks at you like you're magic. That's not wasted." Still, Daniel wrestled with his doubts, and this time it was Aisha who anchored him, just as he had done for her so many years ago. Their biggest challenge yet came unexpectedly. Layla, now a teenager, expressed her dream to pursue music. Seriously. She wanted to skip law school and chase melodies instead. Daniel encouraged her. "If music is what makes your heart beat, you have to follow it." But Aisha panicked. "No, Daniel. I won't let her throw away stability for uncertainty. I know what that road looks like." Old wounds reopened. The same arguments they had once had resurfaced. Practicality versus passion, security versus risk. "Don't project your fears on her, Aish," Daniel snapped. "She deserves the chance I had. And she deserves better than the struggles you went through," Aisha shot back. For weeks, they barely spoke, their bond trembling under the weight of old battles reborn in a new form. The resolution came not from either of them, but from Layla herself. One night she sat them both down and said, "You two taught me what real friendship looks like. You fought, you broke, you healed, but you never gave up on each other. I want to live my life with that same courage. Music is my path, but I'll take responsibility for it. Just like you both took responsibility for your dreams." Her words silenced them, forcing them to see the reflection of their own journey in her eyes. Aisha finally sighed. "Maybe I was scared because I know how hard it can be. But you're right. If it's your dream, I won't stand in the way." Daniel placed a hand on Aisha's shoulder. "She's going to be fine. She has you. She has me. And she has her own fire." Years later, Layla stood on a stage, guitar in hand, her voice filling the air with raw emotion. In the crowd sat Aisha, proud tears in her eyes, and Daniel, cheering like he always had. As the lights dimmed and the applause roared, Aisha leaned toward Daniel and whispered, "Looks like the bridge we built carried her too." Daniel smiled, eyes glistening. "Told you some bonds don't fade. They just grow stronger." And as they watched the next generation carry forward the lessons of love, resilience, and loyalty, they knew their story wasn't just about them anymore. It had become a legacy. Years passed as they always do. Aisha was older now, her once tireless energy softened by age and wisdom. She watched with pride as her daughter Layla's music career blossomed, bigger than Daniel's had ever been. Layla toured internationally, balancing artistry with authenticity, and always credited her mother and Uncle Danny for shaping her courage. Daniel, now in his 50s, had become something of a mentor to a whole generation of young artists. His name carried respect, not for fame but for integrity. Yet, with each passing year, he became more aware of time's weight. One autumn evening, sitting with Aisha on the same bridge they had always returned to, he sighed. "Funny thing about time. We fought it so much when we were young, but now, I just want it to slow down." Aisha chuckled softly, her hair streaked with silver. You say that every year, Danny. But maybe slowing down isn't the point. Maybe it's about knowing we've lived enough to leave something behind. Daniel looked at her, eyes moist. And what do you think we've left? She smiled. Her. Lila. The music. The lessons. Us. It was Daniel who fell ill first. Quiet sickness, creeping, merciless. At first, he tried to hide it, canceling performances, telling people he was just tired. But Aisha knew better. She saw the weight in his face, the frailty in his steps. When he finally confessed, sitting in her office with trembling hands, Aisha's world tilted. I don't want people to pity me, he whispered. And I don't want you to carry this burden either. Her voice broke. You don't get to decide that. You've carried me through more storms than I can count. Let me carry you now. And so she did. Through hospital visits, sleepless nights, and moments where music became Daniel's only comfort, Aisha never left his side. Their friendship, tested countless times, was now being tested in its final and hardest way. On a quiet spring afternoon, Daniel asked Aisha and Layla to sit with him. His voice was weak, but his words carried their old fire. I was never the star I thought I'd be. But I had the stage, I had the songs, and I had both of you. That's more than I ever deserved. Layla sobbed as she held his hand. You were more than enough. You gave me everything. Aisha whispered. You've been my family, my anchor, my bridge. Daniel smiled faintly, closing his eyes. Then I've done my part. And with that, the man who once chased dreams with reckless abandon left behind the only legacy that mattered. Love, loyalty, and music that would outlive him. Grief was heavy, but Aisha found solace in the memories. She visited the bridge often, sometimes alone, sometimes with Layla. Daniel's absence was felt everywhere, yet so was his presence, woven into songs, laughter, and lessons that would never fade. Layla dedicated her next album to him, its title simple yet profound, The Bridge Between Us. It became her most beloved work, a tribute not just to Daniel, but to the bond that had shaped her life. Years later, an elderly Aisha stood in the crowd as Layla performed that same album on stage. The audience swayed, tears in their eyes, as Layla sang words inspired by the friendship that had carried two lives through storms, joys, and inevitable goodbyes. And as Aisha listened, she felt Daniel beside her, not as absence, but as presence, as memory, as music, as the bridge that had carried them both. Some friendships don't just survive. They transform into legacies. And legacies never die. Years had folded into decades. Layla's music carried Daniel's spirit across the world, and Aisha, now gray-haired and gentle, lived her days in quieter rhythms. The city of Marantan had changed. New buildings rose, old streets faded, but the bridge where so much of their story unfolded remained. One evening, Aisha returned there, walking slowly with her cane. The sun was setting, painting the sky in gold and violet. She leaned on the railing, staring at the river below, and let her thoughts drift. She remembered the laughter of youth, the arguments that nearly tore them apart, the reconciliations that stitched them back together. She remembered sitting here with Daniel, both of them older, wiser, but still the same at their core. A whisper of music lingered in her memory. His guitar, his voice, his laughter. She closed her eyes, and for a brief, impossible moment, she swore she felt him standing beside her, warm and familiar. Smiling, she whispered, "You kept your promise, Danny. You never really left." When she opened her eyes, the river shimmered with the colors of twilight. And though the world had moved on, the bridge still stood firm, just as their friendship had. It had carried them through love, through loss, through time itself. And now it carried her forward, not with sorrow, but with gratitude. Because some bonds are not broken by distance, by silence, or even by death. Some bonds become eternal. Theirs was one of them. Supporting dreams is part of love. Even when they disagreed, Aisha and Daniel ultimately supported each other's paths. Believing in someone's dream can be the greatest gift a friend gives. Legacy is built through relationships. Daniel never became the superstar he once dreamed of, but his influence lived on through Aisha, Layla, and countless others.